Black privilege is the fact that this woman could literally just go to her boss and say that someone was racist and get her fired. That's black privilege. Black privilege is the fact that you can have a beauty pageant only for black people. Black privilege is the fact that you have scholarships only for African Americans. If white people had any of that, it would be called discrimination and it would be called racist. Please tell me something that white people can have that black people cannot. And I want you to talk out of facts and not emotion. Like the fact that black people have black spaces. Could you imagine if there was a white space in our college dorms, in our high schools? Like, let's be for real. And I want to point out that those are things that I do not want to be taken away from anybody. But if one group of people can have it, so should the other.
Of course we pander to blacks. They're in every TV commercial. They get more privileges to come into society. They come into every college on preferential with lower test scores. You can't ever say anything negative. You can lose your job. You will have your entire life obliterated if you say something racist. And yet we have to hear about how racist we are. How about you take responsibility for your own actions instead of blaming the white man?
As I always say, there's a shift happening in this world. A shift is happening. And this shift, this world did not plan for. I'm talking about black people. Black people around the world are identifying something within themselves that was always there, but intentionally hidden. Okay? That is the shift I'm talking about. Black people identifying their privilege, black people identifying their worth, black people identifying their strength, black people identifying their powers and everything else. When you hear people, or when people hear the word privilege, they get triggered. Okay? They think privilege means having more money, having more political power, and having more opportunities. But the privilege I'm talking about today in this video is the privilege that black people are waking up to. Okay? The privilege that black people are waking up to. It is much deeper, much older, and much more threatening to the world. It is shifting the world order. I'm talking about the privilege of identity, the privilege of culture, the privilege of history, the privilege of spiritual endurance. That privilege, this is the privilege that nobody wanted black people to recognize. Because once black people identify their true privilege, the psychological power they carry, suddenly the fear in white communities begin to show. You can feel it. I know you can see it in the news. You can see it in the reaction videos. You can see it in political speeches. You can see it even in the comment section online. White America used to call black people victims, but right now we hear a new phrase coming up, and a phrase they never expected to use, which is black privilege. Now, I want you to watch this video first. After watching this video, and we come here, we talk about it, we discuss about it, because that's what I know to do best, discussing about black issues. Let's watch this clip, and then we continue.
One of the great things about being black is when I get to look this cute without using a filter. Because when the sun kisses me, baby, it kisses me.
I will say, I think there's like a privilege, I know that sounds crazy, to being, having to do more than us and having gone through so much. I think that we've heard a lot about spirituality, but I feel like because you guys have gone through so much, there's like an enlightenment to you. I always feel such a draw and just so seen in a way that I don't feel as much with white people, I would say. So, I mean, I will just say that I feel like you guys are magnets, and I hope that your voice gets heard more, because I think that there has been a lot of trauma of just invisibility and your way of rising through it and still being survivors and stuff. I don't know, I've always felt like it's been super special, and I'm so thankful for the relationships that I've had.
Oh, shit, not the bridge being built. Not the bridge!
I will never forget, let me just say, when I was younger, I will never forget looking over as a young kid and seeing a black man get out of a Mercedes, and something, I was like, that's success. And there was just always that vision. And I know it doesn't have to be like a superficial symbol, but there was just something implanted in me as a young kid. And I had a buzzed head when I was young, and I felt like I think I've allowed myself to see that, like, having shorter hair as a female, like, I haven't seen myself a lot on, you know, in the media. And I've heard that be a complaint of a lot of other people of not feeling that represented. So I think kind of feeling othered a lot in my own world in just a small way had made me feel like a kinship. And so I think that while there's privilege to being white, I feel like there's another privilege that doesn't get spoken about of actually having to suffer, because those are the people that really know how to, like, have resilience and rise up and actually listen and just thrive. So
I know that we were just celebrating the bridge you made, and I don't want to tear it down, but I think I had a different response, seemingly, than the rest of the room to that. I know that you mean well by that, and I can see that you're very genuine. I have a really hard time sitting with the idea that the significant trauma that the Black community has experienced in this country has made us enlightened, and that there's like this beautiful spiritual quality that it's given us, because I think it feels, and maybe I'm just speaking to the way that's landed for myself, like a huge bypassing of how genuinely traumatic that is, to be like, well, look at you, like you're radiant now.
I'm not saying that.
I'm like,
saying
that's
that, like,
the way that
you've been through something, whereas, like, we're over here and we can, who knows how much we've even been through.
Yeah, and like I'm not.
But you've
disagreeing
also
with
rolled
that.
your eyes at so many people that have been speaking, so I don't know if that's your.
I mean,
your
a lot of
immediate-
really insane things have been said.
I don't know if
but
that's your immediate response, is just to roll your eyes. I might not have the best, like, language with it, but I know that, like, on a soul level, like, I feel I have a lot of awe and respect.
And I appreciate that a lot.
Take it where you can get it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. All I'm saying is this idea that somehow having endured what the Black community has endured in this country and coming out the other end, barely surviving, there are people right now who are not surviving, that's somehow a privilege is ludicrous. And like, maybe what you said completely landed wrong with me, but that's how I took all of that, and that's all that.
I keep getting asked and practically taunted to talk about Black privilege, so you know what, I will. Black privilege does exist, as a figment of your imagination. Interestingly enough, the phrase Black privilege only cropped up recently as a counterattack to the growing use of white privilege, and is pointed to as a set of societal advantages that Black people have access to that other people, i.e. white, don't. Essentially, it's often used to dismiss conversations about systemic racism. The most common examples are the fact that Black people are allowed to be proud of and celebrate their heritage, that they get to have exclusive spaces, or that they get to use words that others can't. But A, would any white person decrying Black privilege trade all of their advantages for the ones I just mentioned? And B, apart from the fact that these are minor benefits, there is a historical and systemic reason as to why Black privilege simply doesn't hold true. After centuries of slavery, segregation, and discrimination, systemic disparities continue to affect Black communities today. From education to employment, housing to healthcare, Black individuals continue to face disproportionate disadvantages, and trust me, these structural inequalities fly right in the face of Black privilege. Privilege, at its core, is a right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group. So let's go back through the advantages I mentioned earlier and put them into perspective. Black people are allowed to be proud of and celebrate their heritage. Well, first of all, celebrating one's heritage doesn't imply superiority, especially not in this case. If you take into account the history of slavery, segregation, unwillingness to acknowledge Black contributions, theft of Black contributions, underrepresentation, offensive racial caricatures, etc., etc. At its essence, something like Black History Month is about acknowledging and celebrating the unique experiences, contributions, and resilience of Black people throughout history and today. Society at large celebrates the accomplishments of white people every day, so much so that it's institutionalized, whether in courts, education, the legal system, or in politics. There's an inequality of recognition, and the fact that some calls to celebrate whiteness are in response to Black celebration exemplifies the malignant racism behind it all. White privilege exists because of historic and enduring racism, and to say that it doesn't is simply a way to downplay economic, political, and social inequalities. That also holds true for those decrying the privileges of having exclusive spaces or saying words that other people can't. Nobody has ever said that it wasn't okay to be white. However, our society has long told Black people that. We don't live in a post-racial society, and if you really think about it, the notion of Black privilege is simply a step towards equality. And interestingly, interestingly, those decrying black privilege isn't even new. In the US in 1875, Congress passed legislation that banned all discrimination against former enslaved people in public spaces. But then in 1883, the Supreme Court found that law to be unconstitutional, and Justice Joseph Bradley even stated that, quote, "There must come a time when blacks cease to be a special favorite of the laws." This was 18 years after the abolishment of slavery. The majority of black people at the time were former slaves. Of course, this decision then led to the creation of Jim Crow laws, and that's another story for a whole other day. The important thing to remember here is that in many countries, slavery was abolished less than 200 years ago. But yeah, sure, black privilege. Guess that's what it is when you earn in shackles? Also, pointing to a black celebrity, a black politician, or any successful black person to denounce black privilege is quite funny to me because it implies that black people don't have a right to be successful. Or if they are, it's a problem. Ultimately, the idea of black privilege is a weak attempt at getting out of recognizing that our society was built on and still deals with systemic racism. It's a sort of whine from people who don't like being challenged about their white privilege. All one has to do is simply acknowledge that they benefit from it and do their part in changing it, but I guess acknowledging it means confronting it, so some people would rather put their energy elsewhere.
Us as black people, and I'm calling out everybody black, we have to create our own black privilege. We have to. It's non-negotiable. What does that look like? I was on a plane sitting first class. There was a little girl walked by me, she had her backpack on. She was so adorable, and she just kept staring at me, and I said, "You are so pretty." And she goes, right, she looked away. I said, "No, you are so pretty." And then I heard her ask her mom, like, about me sitting up front, right? What that means. Her mom said, "Oh, that's first class." And she said, "Mommy, why we can't sit here?" So they're having this quiet conversation.
Right.
They get in their seat. I told the stewardess, "Go get that little girl." She said, "Which one?" The little girl that walked by me. She went and got the little girl. I said, "Listen, you have my seat if the mom's okay with it." The mom was like, "Absolutely." So I said, "She has my seat. Whatever she wants, order it." But my point is, I created black privilege with that. We have to start to create that. White people only have white privilege because they privilege their people. We have to start seeing our black people and privilege them. Yeah. We have to do that. That is something I'm calling out every black person to do. If you got a penny or if you got $1 million, figure out once a day what black person you can privilege. I don't care if it's your neighbor or if it's a family member. Please do.
It's time for a little black privilege, y'all. We've been on the outside looking in too long, fighting against white privilege later for that. It's time to create black privilege, to make it a privilege to be black. That's why we built the Black Shares platform. It's a space where we can all come together, millions of us. It is a space where we create opportunities for each other. We share opportunities with each other. We collaborate. We build together. We reinvest in businesses. We become customers of each other's businesses. We build, we work together. This is how we win. This is how we close the wealth gap. They've tried to take everything from us, including DEI, tried to deny us opportunities, deny our history, but they can't take from us who we are. They can't take our culture, our soul, our history, our shared experience. They can't take our skill sets, our backgrounds, our experience. They can't take our hearts. They can't take our minds. They can't take any of that. So we use that to create black privilege. We collaborate. We work together, millions of us in the same space with unity and purpose, building and growing together and reinvesting in each other. Black privilege is here. Come see us at Black Shares.
Let me talk about the psychology behind the fear in white America when they hear the word privilege. Because the fear that we are seeing today is not random. The fear we are seeing today is not new. Okay? And it's not just even about the privilege, the way they claim it. But the fear is ancient, the fear is inherited, and the fear is generational. Let me explain this. Now, white America grew up generation after generation with a guaranteed psychological position in society, okay? With a guaranteed psychological position, a position where they were always the heroes, a position where they were always the inventors, a position where they were always the leaders, they were always the standard, they were always the default authority. And remember, that wasn't natural. That wasn't just how it is. But this position was constructed. It was constructed through laws, through culture, through media, through education, through religion, through economics. And every system in the Western world was built in a way that gave white people a sense of natural superiority and gave black people a sense of natural inferiority. Now, here's the twist. And here's the twist that they did not see it coming. The moment black people stop believing in inferiority, white superiority collapses automatically. The moment black people start believing in themselves, the white superiority collapses. It does not collapse through violence, not through revenge or through force or through protest or elections, but the moment black people mentally detach from inferiority, the psychological empire of whiteness fails by itself. And that, my family, that is the fear I'm talking about. Because once you understand that your power was never given by them, then you realize something. You realize that they never had any power to take it away. And this is the moment white community are in panic. This is why you see the shift of language. This is why suddenly they are calling it black privilege. You know, when black people are given jobs in large numbers, they are calling it black privilege. When the law is favoring black people, which is reality, not favor, but when the law is clean and clear, they call it black privilege. You know? So they are not afraid of power. They are not afraid of black power. They are afraid that they can no longer control the narrative about your power. Okay? They are afraid that the old psychological script no longer works here. They are afraid because a black person who knows that who they are, they cannot be manipulated. They are afraid that a black man who knows his identity cannot be manipulated. They are afraid that a black community that knows their worth cannot be controlled. They are afraid because a black generation that understands history cannot be lied to. And here's the truth they will never say out loud. White America fears equality because equality feels like oppression to those what? Those who have expected dominance forever. Okay? Equality feels oppression. And this is why everything looks like a threat to them. And now, a confident black man is a threat. A successful black woman is a threat. A united black family is a threat. Black Americans connecting with Africa, big threat. Africans standing boldly against Western pressure is a threat. Black youth speaking openly on TikTok, on YouTube is a threat. You can see that pattern. So it was never about privilege. It was always about control, because the biggest fear white society has is not losing money. The biggest fear white society has is not losing election or losing culture. The fear is losing psychological dominance over black identity. And when black people identify their own privilege, their natural, historical, cultural, spiritual privilege, the foundation of white identity starts sinking, it starts shaking, and it will vanish. Black self-awareness is their worst nightmare. And let me tell you something here. You can't stop a black person who becomes conscious. You can't weaken a black person who knows their origin. Or you can't intimidate a black person who knows the game. Okay? I'm not sure if you are understanding what I'm saying. You can never silence a black person who knows their ancestors worked as kings. So this fear and this panic we are seeing, this trembling, it's not about today. No. It's about history. It's about history returning to their honor. It's about the world rebalancing itself. When Africa start doing legit business, like it is threatening, because maybe they just wanna exploit. But when we want equality in business, it's a threat. You know, And this fear is all over. And this fear is showing up. It does not hide forever. The fear always exposes itself. Okay? And this fear is showing itself through media, because when you look at the movies, the TV shows, when you look at the news anchors, they package some things. They package black as criminal. They package black as threat, poor, struggling, angry, inferior, needing help, needing guidance. So they needed the world to see black people as less, so that they could fear, or they could feel more, I think, But today I see it is reality. Black people control the biggest music genes. Black people control the most viral cultural trends, the global slang. Black people control the blueprint of coolness, Black people control the direction of youth culture. Black people control the most influential fashion. And suddenly the media is panicking. You could hear statements like, black people get all attention now. I've heard such comments. That Hollywood is too focused on diversity. That everything is about identity politics. So they are not upset about representation, but they are upset about the representation exposes their insecurity. So they feel like the spotlight is leaving them and going to other people, to the people who were once oppressed, and that fear, that's the collapse of the psychological dominance. Now, you can see the fear in politics too. Now, when you look every election season, the same pattern appears. Politicians say that we must protect traditional America, make America great again, that we must preserve the power structure, but when black voters shift politically, fear comes in. When black people talk about economic boycotts, fear comes in. When black people mobilize online, fear comes in. Okay? So when this fear comes, you will hear things like wokeness is destroying America. That's why you can hear terms like black activists are radical, So these are not logical arguments. Per me, I think these are emotional panic that signals, because if black people build economic power, politically consciousness and spiritual self-identity, then the old system cannot control itself anymore. And this is why politicians try so hard to block diversity programs. They try so hard to discredit black intellectuals. They try so hard to attack affirmative actions, to push stereotypes in the media. So it's not about policy. It's about maintaining dominance. Now, again, you could see fear in social media, comment section. You could see fear in workplaces, because if you talk about offices, when a black employee knows their rights or demand fairness or ask questions, you see discomfort in the room, okay? Because whiteness grew used to being an automatic authority. So when black workers challenge that without shouting, without disrespect, the fear comes out, okay? The fear comes out. Now, we can see fear in education, and that's why you cannot see fairness in education, because if a black student is quiet and obedient, no problem. But when a black student is brilliant, outspoken, curious, intellectual, then there is some fear. There is some fear. They will create some narratives. And this is because intelligence from black youth disrupts or interrupts the lie they build. You can see fear in global geopolitics, and fear is on the air. So this awakeness of black people is creating tensions across the world, and black people have privilege. Black people have privilege. So realizing our privilege is the best thing that we are doing, and that's why we are urging you to teach black kids so that they know, okay? They know. Now, you may ask yourself, which kind of privilege do black people have? Most groups in the Western world have history, but black people, we have origins. We don't have history. There's a difference. History is recorded. origins are lived. Okay? Now, I'll talk about okay, black people came from the world's original civilization, and civilization so advanced that even modern scientists still cannot explain. For example, the ancient Ethiopian architecture, the ancient Mali astronomy, the ancient Kemet mathematics, the ancient Nubian meteorology. A lot. So these are not just fairy tales. These are documented realities. So white America doesn't fear your privilege. In the modern world, they fear that you know your worth and you know your past. Because once you understand your origin, then you stop accepting disrespect. You stop believing lies. You stop accepting inferior labels. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Okay? So that's privilege, and that's a privilege that takes everyone. Again, we have a privilege of resilience. Black people have resilience, and most people break at first sign of hardship. But black people, they never break that easily. No. Slavery, colonization, segregation, apartheid, you can name all of this, mass incarceration, police brutality, but black people stood strong and built something stronger. Black people are still rising, black people are still thriving, are still innovating, and we are still loving ourselves, okay? So resilience is a privilege. We have the privilege of culture that cannot die. Let's just be honest here. Every culture that has mixed with black culture becomes stronger. Okay? Every culture that has dots of black people, it is stronger. So I'll say this. Black culture is the engine of global creativity, and that is reality. Okay? That is a pure reality. We have privilege of spiritual power. We have privilege of global numbers. We have privilege of influence. We have privilege of being the original target, but still winning, you know? Every system from slavery to modern propaganda was designed to break black people. But here's the twist, okay? What was designed to destroy only made us stronger. Black trauma created black genius. Black oppression created black innovative. That's what I have to say. So we have privileges, and these privileges is a threat to the system. Tell me what you think on the comment section, because I think we are going places. I'm not saying white people doesn't have privilege, or white people are bad people. We are talking about the system here. The system that created the narrative of superiority. Let's meet the next episode. I have a lot.